The Middle East is currently experiencing a day of high tension. Violent clashes between Israel and Hamas continue to plague the Gaza region. Recurrently, the militants' headquarters are discovered and subjected to relentless attacks every 2 days. In addition to this aggression, Israel has maintained a tense situation with its northern neighbor, Syria. Recently, a series of missiles were launched from the Golan Heights towards Israeli territory, triggering an escalation of hostilities. In response, Israel carried out bombings against Syrian military units. Ultimately, Hezbollah joined the conflict between Israel and Syria. Israeli soldiers ambushed Hezbollah militants in homes, managing to surprise them with a strong attack. The lack of preparation led to the militants suffering a resounding defeat. Hezbollah reported the loss of 7 of its members, stating that they had been martyred on the road to Jerusalem. Hezbollah and Lebanese security officials, on condition of anonymity, expressed concern and sadness over the deaths of these militants in Syria. Hezbollah, which fights alongside the Syrian government in the country, seeks to shift the balance of power in its favor in the 12-year conflict in the region. The Israeli military later reported that the Red Sea city of Eilat was attacked from Syria. A drone attack hit a school in Eilat, a busy port and tourist destination. Israel responded, attributing the attack to an unidentified group in Syria, launching a counterattack with intense fire. The Israel Defense Forces held the Syrian regime responsible for any terrorist activity coming from its territory, ensuring that it would respond to any aggression. Images spread on social networks showed smoke rising from the impact in the city of Eilat. Israel had previously announced the interception of 2 missiles fired in that city. Additionally, Iranian-backed forces in Yemen claimed responsibility for several attacks on Israel. Confrontations persist on the Israeli-Lebanese border. The Israel Defense Forces reported the arrival of 3 planes from Lebanon. One of them was intercepted while the other 2 crashed in the north, leaving 3 Israeli soldiers seriously injured. In previous days, 2 soldiers were also injured after the impact of an anti-tank missile in Manara, in northern Israel, after a plane entered from Lebanon. In response, Israel attacked Hezbollah targets. For its part, Hezbollah claimed to have attacked Israeli forces with missiles and drones in several areas of northern Israel. Reports indicated 3 drone attacks by Hezbollah near the border. Lebanon's national news agency reported Israeli airstrikes in areas such as Mais, Jabal, and Hula, near the border. In these incidents, a citizen was slightly injured in Jailah. Additionally, Israeli shelling was reported on the outskirts of Tyre Harfa and Al-Dira, southern Lebanon. Hezbollah is not the only group in southern Lebanon facing Israel. Recently, Hamas announced that Lebanese militants were launching rockets toward Israel. Since the start of the war with Hamas, Israel has maintained regular airstrikes against Iran-linked targets in Syria. Syrian authorities often implicate Israel in the attacks, although they are rarely confirmed by Israel. In the last month, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights documented 11 suspected Israeli airstrikes as well as 6 rocket attacks. Hezbollah, like Iran, supports the Syrian government in its confrontation against opposition groups. A second Martyrs' Day speech from Nasrallah is expected, but the conflicts appear to be limited to exchanges of artillery and rockets on the border, as well as Iranian drone strikes and actions against U.S. stations in Syria and Iraq. A full-scale confrontation with Israel is considered an extreme measure due to the uncertainty and confusing conditions. This approach has disappointed Hamas leaders, who have actively sought Hezbollah's support. Hezbollah has deeply rooted in Lebanese society, holding a dominant position in financial, economic, and political aspects. With social support services, it has become an independent entity of the Lebanese armed forces, controlling its own armed actions. Its growing military and political power has led to almost exclusive governance in Lebanon, especially during the lack of an effective president for more than a year. In this sense, Hezbollah acts without accountability, running a parallel government with great impunity. This situation of power without responsibility coincides with the country's worst economic crisis in decades. Access to basic goods and services has become increasingly difficult, while the currency has lost more than 90% of its value since 2019. Power outages are routine in Beirut and other cities. Nasrallah has avoided mentioning the deteriorating economic, political, and security conditions, ignoring the demonstrations and labor strikes affecting the country. Protests due to the socio-economic situation and government mismanagement have been common for years. Recovery will require significant reforms, but the current political regime in Lebanon makes any substantial change difficult. Nasrallah, with Iranian support, has postponed a full-scale confrontation with Israel, recognizing the need for stability amid unrest and crisis. Any attempt by Nasrallah to become involved in a larger conflict could trigger a popular revolt. Despite being under the influence of Hezbollah, the Lebanese population is not willing to face a formal war.